Thank you very much. Peter Vigers, Staffordshire. That's a wonderful presentation, and I think gives us all great hopes for what happens in the House of Lords. And some specific points I'd like to sort of comment on and ask about, because the ministers mentioned them as well. He sounded very confident that if something was in your manifesto, the House of Lords would treat it very kindly. And I think it's nicely undermined by the point about not having a popular mandate for what was in your manifesto. But beyond that, I've always been troubled by this thing about manifestos anyway. If you vote for a party, this rather assumes that you're voting for everything in the manifesto, however crazy, all the details. I'm sure we've all read all the manifestos, haven't we? And everybody out there has too. Well, it's rubbish, isn't it? And I think that we should start taking away credibility from the manifesto for a start. And I like the bit about visibility. Mirages are visible too, aren't they? You see mirages. Trouble is, they don't actually mean what they seem to say. And people like Stalin was very visible, wasn't he? He was elected properly. That doesn't mean to say he was an ideal person to rule a country any more than Hitler or some other people we could think of. George W. Bush was very visible too. So these things are trotted out as though they are truths in themselves, and then they deserve to be challenged. And my final point is about, again, direct elections and the power of democracy. And I'm afraid I've said this before at these meetings, but there have been elections of that sort in the last 5 years, for example, in Stoke-on-Trent, where less than 20% of people have voted. And it's true at the moment, we're not in a position where we can do any more than point at what's happened in the past. We just suspect that when these elections, if they happen, start going around, there's going to be some things like that. Well, what kind of mandate is less than 20%? You know, how are these same people going to justify that as the will of the local people to support any one person? So that all of these weaknesses, I think, do deserve to be brought out, just as Baroness Henig has done for us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you like to comment, Angela?
Yes, just very briefly. It's really understanding the process of how the bill will be dealt with. And I think I saw Tom coming in, Tom Brake. Hi, Tom. My guy in the House of Commons. I think the bill is almost certainly going to start in the House of Commons, and it will go through all its stages there before it comes to the House of Lords, where we will try and amend it. I have laid my colours very clearly out about this, and I know that there is quite a lot of support in the Lords at the moment. I think for an amendment, of course. Well, maybe for a few amendments. I think that it is. I understand that Nick Herbert was here yesterday talking to you, and rather dismissed the House of Lords and what we do there. Well, we'll see. You've heard what Ruth has had to say, and I commend entirely what she said to you. We will fight very hard to amend the bill where we feel that it's appropriate to do so. And that's really all we can do. Can I just say as a final thing to you, as all leaders, as both Anne and Ruth have said, it is up to you now to lead the APA as well as leading your constituent force areas. It is so important that you make decisions now and stick to them. That's what leadership is. That's what leadership is. So go away and do that, and let's fight the battle when it comes. And we'll do our very, very best for you in the House of Lords. But you've got to get other people on side. Okay? Thank you.
And Diana, have you got a mic?
I haven't, no.
Oh, here we are. It's on behind you.
Well, your ladyship's colleagues, I have to say that, first of all, Anne, may I applaud your passion when you opened this debate, and I think it goes for absolutely everybody in here. We all are passionate about where we are with police authorities, and in particular, the APA, which I also made very clear. But let's just get things very straight, your ladyships, and everybody in this room. We are in a big deficit in this country. We are in big debt. We now have a coalition government who has been working for 6 months to try and put it right. And I think on the whole, they're doing a pretty good job. It's not right, it's not perfect, but there are ways of getting through, I hope, to our communities. And I think on the whole, the communities are still behind the coalition. I'm not saying it'll last. With regard to the Association of APA colleagues, I am fully supportive of trying to maintain the APA as it is, and indeed the function that it gives, and I said so yesterday, and I will defend it also to the nth degree while I am still here, because I firmly believe in it. However, all of you who keep kicking our ministers and the people that are coming to us, we all know, with the greatest respect, that this is the Prime Minister's baby. I know that. It is something that he believes in. As a Conservative, and I think most of our group, although they're not happy either, and I would support what you said, I don't like the way we've been bashed at all. Like we have Bobby bashing. I don't think it's right telling us we're translucent. So are the rest of them, so are fire authorities, so are councillors. They're all translucent unless anybody needs us. We know that. So I too will help the fight. But I do believe that we are trying to cut costs of policing, we're trying to do something different, and I don't think change is such a bad thing. So I think commissioners could work, but it's not the way we want it. We do need to improve what's around them, and I entirely agree with all those who are trying to do that. But as I say, the Conservative group also find it offensive, some of the ways that have been challenged, the way people have got of us and said that we've virtually been useless all these years. That's rubbish. But I do not agree with many of you. Nobody in my area knows who we are. And I have to say to you, ladyships, I've only picked up a few of these surveys that have been done, and most of them are saying, yeah, let's have a go. So I'm very sorry. It probably depends where we recommend. But certainly a lot of my friends who are not political are keen on having a go with commissioners. So don't please forget that. It is still out there. With manifestos, with respect, Chairman, we all know most people don't read them, do they? No, they don't. We don't even read our own. I try to read everybody's when I can, but we don't read them. And certainly those that vote, so they don't always know what they're voting for. But what did they vote for this year? They voted for change in this country. That's what you've got, and that's what this government, this coalition, is trying to get us back on board. And I won't hit my Labour colleagues too hard, because as you rightly say, we do try not to be too political. But it does get political when we're talking money. And this country is in serious deficit. And this programme and policy that's come forward, we'll see what happens next week when we see the white paper, when it finishes. We'll see how we go. But we cannot, and I will not knock this coalition government just all the time, saying it's not trying to do something right. Thank you.
If I could just respond. I mean, what I've been trying to do is to base everything on principles, because I do actually think that's important. I mean, I don't want to go down the party political route, although I would say if you've got a problem with finances, surely that's not the time to start making wholesale changes. I would have thought if you've got financial problems, you retrench, you consolidate, and you work on the basis you've got. But the point I would want to make is that we've had 5 or even more years where my government, and I was never in favour of this, so I can say this, has tried to bring in locally elected mayors. So we actually have a precedent here. And how have locally elected mayors worked? They haven't worked. People haven't really taken to it. They've worked in places patchily, but there's also been a lot of scandals, there's been a lot of problems, and the evidence is that people at local level don't like direct elections. They're not used to it. They like the councillor system. And so we do have some precedents here. Tony Blair wanted to bring in elected mayors. So it's still there. It's still around. But there's no evidence that I can see that local people are warming to that. And if we've got that evidence in front of us, why are we trying to compound it by having elected police commissioners who are going to be even more remote than elected mayors? Because I think the evidence is there before our eyes. And it is nothing to do with party politics. It's to do with the political culture of this country. And the political culture of this country, it seems to me, supports team playing at local level, it supports local councillors, it supports the sort of democracy that we've all become used to, and then I think we're operating reasonably effectively. So I have to say, so why are we changing?
I'm going to take 2 more questions. I've got Miranda and then Peter, please. And then I've been given the look from Lucy here, so I'm going to have to wind up.
Thank you. Yes, Miranda Carruthers-Watt, Chief Executive of Lancashire. This is from an officer perspective. From an officer perspective, it's perfectly straightforward to organise a campaign if there is a clear decision from the authority that that's what is needed. there is a great deal of concern as a result of the letters that have come out from government and very clear messages that are being given both to officers and to members that they are not allowed to argue about this. And I do think it's important for members to be clear in their instructions to officers as to what they want them to do. And the other thing, the Minister has said, and this is a matter that Fraser Sampson is particularly keen on, I think he'd like to have a debate with the Minister. The Minister has said the Salisbury-Addison Convention will apply and the Lords cannot argue this because it was in the manifesto commitment. So I pass that on, Ruth, for your enjoyment.
Angela, do you want to come back on this or not?
Well, it will be very interesting to see that played out in the Lords, I think.
And police authorities have a fundamental duty to consult. So it seems to me that it's up to you how you consult local people. Nobody can stop you. No ministry, it seems to me, has the right to stop police authority members from consulting their local people about anything to do with policing. And I'm sure you would be able to use that to cover a whole range of campaigns that you might have in mind, because that's a fundamental principle of local policing.
Right, Peter? Please, thank you.
I hate to fall out with Diana because she can be quite difficult. But I'm still not quite clear what she was saying. What I do think she said, though, or representation came across to me, is there's a certain division within the APA. If you're going to follow Ruth's line, which I think is perfectly right and proper, surely we have to present a unified front. And I think one of our weaknesses up to now has been that we've been manifestly divided in public. ACPO, and I see there's a couple of ACPO officers here, Mr. Fahey amongst them. Sorry? Okay. He always heckles me. But the point is, ACPO, I think, whatever their divisions within have gone outside. They've done it really well, and I'm quite admiring of the way they've gone about the 21st century reforms and everything else. If you look at ourselves, I don't think we've behaved in that way, and we do ourselves a huge disservice. If you want to follow, and I hope everybody does want to follow, the line that Ruth and Anne have set out this morning, then you've got to present a unified front outside and not make excuses for some of the things that have been going on in the political world and defending them. And I do feel, Diana, you may have this view, but I think you have to join with all of us, if you believe in it, and present a unified front outside. And I think this is really important.
Absolutely
Thank you, Peter.
Absolutely right. It's a good point. You've finished on that one.
Right, well, thank you very much, everybody. We have gone over today. That was fascinating, Ruth and Angela, a real rallying cry. And to be perfectly blunt, it's what I wanted. And I'm sure it's what it's obvious it's what we've all wanted. And we do need to have this united front, and we do need to fight and to speak for local people, because, to be honest, if we don't do it, as I said before, there's nobody else to do it. So come on, let's get together and have some really honest discussions and debate with each other and try to have this unified front. Thank you very much indeed. I will get copies of Ruth's speech, and I will have them sent to all chairs and chief execs. And as she said, no wavering, there's a lot to fight for. So I'd like to thank you both very much indeed for coming along. Would you please show your appreciation? Thank you, girls, thank you.